we're looking at here is a Sumerian tablet that actually shows the Tree of Life, flanked by divine beings. You can see here the Anunnaki on each side. We also see the winged disc, a symbolic reference that the Anunnaki had the power of flight.
Locked inside a museum archive in Istanbul is a 5,000-year-old Sumerian tablet most people have never heard of. It does not tell myths. It gives measurements, depths, coordinates, entrances beneath the ocean floor.
Particularly what came out of ancient Sumer.
Yeah.
Ancient Sumer, when you look at their tablets and like, what are they saying? And why would they dedicate so much time to talking about this stuff?
For decades, historians assumed it was symbolic until a deep-sea expedition in 2004 descended to the location described on the tablet. What they found below matched the text almost exactly. Background Eridu is the oldest city in the Sumerian record. The tablets that describe its founding do not show a slow rise of civilization. They describe a clear before and after. Before Eridu, there is no sign of writing, organized farming, or city life. After Eridu appears, all of these things exist at once. The tablets place the Anunnaki at the center of this change. According to the text, they arrived and quickly established the foundations of civilization. Writing, irrigation, kingship, and temple systems appeared within a single generation. This sudden shift has puzzled historians and researchers for many years. Most tablets from this time are considered mythology. They focus on creation stories, divine family lines, and lists of kings. Scholars have studied these texts for more than a century. Because of their religious themes, they are usually treated as symbolic stories rather than historical records. VAT/12772 is different. Researchers who studied the tablet say its language does not sound like mythology. Instead, it reads more like a technical or administrative document. Other Sumerian texts describe the Abzu as a mythical place beneath the earth. It is usually linked to Enki, the god of wisdom and fresh water. In those stories, the Abzu is mysterious and symbolic. VAT/12772 describes the Abzu in a very different way. The text mentions levels, dimensions, and specific functions. It uses detailed language instead of poetic descriptions. The writing sounds closer to an engineering record or maintenance log than a religious story. This makes the tablet unusual compared to other Sumerian documents. The precision of the text is what stands out most. Mythology often speaks in symbols and broad ideas. VAT/12772 focuses on structure and operation. It explains the Abzu as if it were a real physical place. In the framework of this tablet, the Abzu is not just part of a myth. It is presented as a structure with a defined purpose. The text goes even further by describing where the entrance to this structure can be found. The Abzu's architecture. The tablet describes the entry point as a vertical shaft. It descends through rock. At the base of the shaft, the structure opens into a 7-level chamber, each level with a designated function, each described with enough detail to distinguish one from another. The first level handles water processing, the second handles air. The third is described as a storage area for knowledge. The tablet's language here is specific enough that translators have connected it to the concept of record keeping rather than a general sense of wisdom. The fourth level is associated with biological processes, a phrase that has produced significant debate among the researchers who have worked with the passage. Levels 5 through 7 are where the tablet becomes harder to read. The relevant sections are damaged. What survives includes references to geometric carvings, stones that emit light without heat or fuel, and a central chamber associated with the me, the Sumerian concept of the principles that make civilization function. Writing, mathematics, law, agriculture, medicine. The tablet places them here in a chamber at the deepest accessible level of a structure built beneath the seafloor. The chamber for the me is not described as a library, it is described as an interface, a word the translators have chosen carefully because the original language suggests a place where something is accessed rather than simply stored. 7 levels, specific functions at each, an entrance through a vertical shaft. These are the architectural details VAT/12772 preserves, and they are the details that made the 2004 expedition worth mounting. The 2004 underwater discovery. In 2004, a joint Turkish-American marine archaeology team explored the waters near the ancient Sumerian coastline. The mission was kept quiet from the public. Very little information about it appeared in the media at the time. According to later reports, the team was searching for underwater structures connected to old Sumerian records. What they discovered quickly became the subject of mystery and speculation. The structures they found were large cylinders made of basalt stone. Basalt is a heavy volcanic rock that does not naturally form in that area. Researchers compared the material to other known basalt sources and found the closest match nearly 800 kilometers away in modern-day Armenia. This suggested the stones had been transported over a very long distance. The cylinders had not arrived there naturally. Someone had placed them there intentionally. The team discovered 7 cylinders in total. 6 were arranged in a hexagonal pattern around a single central cylinder. Each structure measured about 30 meters across and extended nearly 90 meters into the seafloor. Divers and researchers also reported visible tool marks on the surfaces. The cuts appeared straight and carefully shaped. Natural erosion usually creates rough and uneven forms, not clean geometric lines like the ones documented at the site. The measurements became even more interesting when researchers converted them into ancient Sumerian units. According to reports, the dimensions closely matched descriptions found on an old Sumerian tablet. The lead archaeologist reportedly said the measurements matched down to the cubit, meaning the similarity was extremely precise. Only a few weeks after the discovery, the Turkish government shut the project down. The area was declared a military exclusion zone, and access to the site was blocked. All samples collected during the expedition were confiscated. The researchers returned home without the ability to publish detailed findings or continue public study of the site. Since then, very little official information has been released. The underwater structures remain inaccessible, and the full details of the discovery are still unknown. What the team may have found inside the site or what caused authorities to act so quickly was never fully explained before the expedition ended. The Soviet submarine angle. The 2004 expedition did not find the site by accident. The coordinates they used came from a different source, decades older. In 1968, a Soviet submarine operating in the Persian Gulf at approximately 400 meters depth reportedly detected a large geometric structure on the seafloor. The coordinates were classified. They remained classified for more than 30 years. In 2001, a former Soviet naval officer published a brief account in a small Russian journal that circulated in academic circles without attracting wide attention. The account included the coordinates. Turkish archaeologists working with the Sumerian tablet material found the 2001 account and compared the coordinates against the location the tablet described: the confluence of the 2 rivers meeting the sea, the point where the Tigris and Euphrates empty into the Persian Gulf. The alignment was close enough to justify mounting an expedition. A Soviet submarine, a classified detection report, a leaked naval account 33 years later, and a 5,000-year-old tablet, all pointing at the same location. The expedition was the result of those 4 things converging. Dr. Meet Otawan. The lead archaeologist on the 2004 expedition gave one interview after returning. After that, he went silent. No further publications, no conference appearances, no follow-up statements. The interview that does exist has circulated widely enough in alternative archaeology circles that several passages from it have become reference points. The quote most often cited reads, "Whatever we found down there proves the Sumerian records are not mythology. They are history." He did not elaborate publicly on what specifically produced that conclusion. The interview contains a reference to something discovered inside one of the structures, a finding that, in his account, was the direct cause of the government's decision to halt the expedition and declare the site restricted. He did not describe that finding in specific terms. What a marine archaeologist sees that causes a government to seal a site within weeks, confiscate all samples, and produce no public explanation is a question the available record cannot answer. What the record does preserve is his statement about the nature of what the Sumerian tablets describe, and his certainty, after what he saw, that the word mythology no longer applied. Geographic and historical corroboration. Geographic and historical corroboration. The tablet places the entrance to the Abzu at a specific geographic location. The language it uses describes the point where 2 rivers meet the sea. In ancient Sumer, that description has one referent, the place where the Tigris and Euphrates reach the Persian Gulf. Sea levels 5,000 years ago were not what they are today. The coastline of the Persian Gulf in the period when VAT/12772 was written sat significantly further inland than it does now. A structure whose entrance the tablet describes as being accessible from the surface would at the time of writing have been on or near dry land. The same entrance, under present sea levels, would sit below water. Ancient coastline reconstruction maps, produced by geologists working on sea level changes over the past 10,000 years, place the likely position of that older shoreline in the same area where the 2004 expedition found its structures. The tablet's geographic description, the historical sea level record, and the expedition's coordinates converge on the same point. The Sumerians who wrote VAT/1277 too were describing an entrance they could reach. The same entrance is now on the seafloor. The tablet does not limit its technical detail to the Abzu's architecture. It describes the tools and materials associated with it in terms that have drawn sustained attention from researchers working across several fields. The transport vehicle described in the tablet is enclosed, made of a metal that does not corrode and moves without sails, oars, or any form of propulsion the Sumerian vocabulary had a conventional word for. It travels through both air and water. The tablet's language does not present this as extraordinary. It describes it the way a maintenance document describes any piece of equipment, as something that exists and functions. The lighting system uses stones that captured the essence of the sun. They emit light without generating heat. They do not require fuel. Researchers have connected this description to materials with phosphorescent or piezoelectric properties, materials that generate or emit energy in response to pressure or movement. The seafloor produces constant low-level seismic activity. A material responsive to that activity would have an indefinite power source at that depth. The construction method described in the tablet for cutting and shaping stone involves sound, specifically frequencies applied to stone, until it splits along precise lines. Modern ultrasonic cutting technology uses exactly this principle. The tablet describes it as a known technique, not a novel one. Two other details have attracted specific attention. The tablet describes transparent panels used for structural viewing, a material it calls crystallized water that never melted, transparent and resistant to pressure. Transparent aluminum, a material developed in the 2000s with exactly those properties, was not a known material at the time researchers first flagged this passage. The second detail involves the seals on the Abzu's deepest chambers, 7 of them made from what the tablet calls heaven's metal, described as non-corroding and unbreakable, with functions covering water pressure, biological contamination, and atmospheric filtration. The material profile matches modern titanium alloys and ceramic matrix composites, developed for deep sea and aerospace applications. The tablet is not describing these things as wonders, it describes them as components. The Anunnaki as teachers. The tablet's account of the Abzu's function is not only architectural, it describes what happened inside it. Humans were brought into the Abzu. The tablet does not describe them as workers performing labor. It describes them as students. What they were taught is listed specifically: the sacred me, the same principles of civilization that the deepest chamber is built to house. Writing, mathematics, astronomy, agriculture, metallurgy, medicine. The humans who completed this process inside the Abzu emerged as Sumer's first priest kings. Their names, according to researchers who have cross-referenced the tablet against other Sumerian records, appear in the Sumerian king list, the document that records the rulers of Sumer from before the flood onward, with reign lengths that modern historians have treated as symbolic because no human lifespans match them. The king list's impossibly long reigns make different sense under the tablet's framework. If the figures listed in its earliest sections were not human rulers but Anunnaki administrators governing before human leadership was established, the reign lengths are not lifespans. They are tenures. The document's transition from multi-thousand-year entries to human-scale ones marks not a change in record-keeping convention, but a change in who was actually governing. The MIT Energy Signature. In 2015, a team of MIT marine geologists was surveying volcanic activity in the Persian Gulf. They were not looking for the structures, they found something at the same coordinates anyway. The team detected a low-frequency electromagnetic signal. It repeated at consistent intervals every 18.7 seconds. The signal was not random. It was not consistent with the geological processes associated with volcanic vents. It was not consistent with any natural process the team could identify. The official attribution in their published findings described it as the product of unknown geological processes, a phrase researchers in multiple fields use when the data produces a result that does not fit available explanations. Two members of the MIT team left the project shortly after the survey. Both moved to private marine archaeology firms. One made an off-record statement that has since been quoted in several alternative archaeology publications. What they found wasn't natural and it scared them. A structure that matched a 5,000-year-old tablet's architectural description. A geometric arrangement the 2004 expedition documented and was immediately prevented from reporting. A non-random electromagnetic signal repeating from the same coordinates a decade later. The pattern across these three data points is the same as the pattern inside VAT/12772, something below the seafloor that is still operating. The departure and the watchers. The tablet describes the Anunnaki leaving. The departure happened during a solar eclipse. 7 craft rose together, cylindrical, polished, producing a sensation the tablet describes as felt rather than heard. They rose vertically. The water beneath them formed circular disturbances. Then they accelerated upward into what the tablet calls the black ocean above the sky. The language for the destination is not ambiguous in the original. It places the Anunnaki's point of origin above, not across. The black ocean above the sky is space described by someone who had no technical vocabulary for space but had apparently seen something leave into it. The departure was not complete. A group stayed behind. The tablet calls them the Watchers, a faction of Anunnaki who remained to maintain operations from locations the text describes as underground facilities, mountain strongholds, and inside the sealed Abzu. The Book of Enoch, a Hebrew text from several centuries after the Sumerian record, describes a group called the Watchers in almost identical terms, beings who remained on Earth after the main group departed, some of whom broke agreed protocols by giving humans knowledge before they were ready to receive it. The flood in the tablet's account was the consequence of that early knowledge transfer. Humanity developed faster than the plan allowed and in directions the Watchers had not been authorized to produce. The flood was not punishment in the religious sense. It was a reset. Environmental management applied to a situation that had moved outside acceptable parameters. The Abzu was designed to survive it. The Watchers who remained entered suspended states inside its sealed chambers and waited. The seed of return. The Anunnaki did not leave without a mechanism for coming back. The tablet describes what it calls a seed of return, a system built into both the structure and the population it had produced. 3 interpretations of this mechanism have emerged from researchers working with the passage. The first treats it as genetic, specific markers in human DNA that become active under conditions the tablet does not fully specify, functioning as a biological key to the Abzu's deepest chambers. The second treats it as technological, a device inside the structure itself, waiting for a specific signal or trigger to initiate re-entry protocols. The third holds that both are true simultaneously, that the biological key and the technological lock are parts of the same system, and that access requires both. A 2018 genetic study of Middle Eastern populations found anomalous genetic seed, markers that do not trace smoothly to any prior population in the archaeological record. They appear suddenly at approximately 5000 BCE, the same period when Sumerian civilization emerged without a visible developmental period. The study did not speculate on the origin of the markers. Researchers working in the ancient astronaut framework connected them to the Anunnaki's documented genetic work and to the seed of return the tablet describes. The markers are present. The tablet describes a biological access system. The timing of both aligns with the founding of the civilization that produced the tablet in the first place. The tablet has survived 5,000 years. The structures it describes were found in 2004 and sealed within weeks. The signal from those coordinates was still transmitting in 2015. VAT/12772 does not end with mythology. It ends with a warning. The seals will break when the time is right. and what is inside will either elevate us or destroy us. The Sumerians wrote for permanence. They wrote what they knew. If that question keeps you here, subscribe. The archive goes deeper than this.